They say that a week is a long time in politics, but 2029 might as well be an eternity if you, advocate for that phrase. And yes, we have seen that play out a very, very long time in terms when it comes to news stories. That's why the phrase exists. However, I will keep on saying this because it is true. Farage has to keep this momentum he has for the next 4 years. I don't think he can at all. That's why he is desperately trying to force the idea that there is going to be a general election in 2027. There's going to be this surprise general election now. We are really not in that state at all. Despite, of course, you've had the fact, of a reshuffle and, Labour losing Angela Rayner. Generally compare this to our previous iteration of Tory government. We are really not there at all. Keir Starmer has still full control of his party. There's no serious constant threat of constant rebellions. It is just not the same at all. Partly because we have an adult government where the adults are in charge. I think people still have not got used to that idea that we actually have a sane party in charge after a couple of years of just craziness. And I think people are still hyped up on that. But I will also keep on saying, because I still haven't been disproven on this, that when you look at Reform's polling versus their actual election performance, especially in the recent by-elections, it doesn't map out. With their type of polling lead, they should have won every single by-election going. But that hasn't been the case at all. In fact, the most winners of by-election have been Labour and the Lib Dems. Those are the ones who have won the by-elections. Now, Reform have won a few, but not stonking great amounts. Because their polling lead says one thing, but the reality says another. And if you want polls, well, I will show you a couple of polls as well that show you just how brittle their polling really is. So, before we go on into those, please do, of course, remember to click on the like, share, and of course, subscribe button down below as well. And of course, don't forget to ring the bell as well when you do that, so you get notifications when we go live, etc. All the good stuff. There are, of course, links down below: the Patreon page, the Buy Me Coffee link where you can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there's the YouTube membership button down below as well. And of course, it is Wednesday as well, so there will be a new video for all the Patreon and the YouTube members as well. And if you want to go see all those other videos that we've made as well, you can sign up to those and you gain access to all that membership content as well. So, as always, let's crack on into this. And of course, don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell as well. So, as always, let's crack on then into this. So this is Sebastian Salek, very, very good, I think, political communicator. Very, very, very good indeed. Really good news blog of what's been going on in politics this week, called Clear the Lobby. Very, very good if you want to have a good understanding of what's been going on in Parliament this week. So he starts off with his first Blue Sky. I don't know. Are we still going to call them tweets, even though it's on Blue Sky? But might as well. It's a thing. Anyway, so he tweeted on this. Reform's poll leading now is astonishingly brittle. The headline numbers, of course, may look impressive, but now the underlying data now reveals a fundamental weakness. Here are 4 major headaches now for Farage. So, the first point: the public does not trust Reform to govern. Just 32% think that Reform would improve how Britain is run, according to YouGov. Remember, this is from YouGov polling. So, again, if you like your polls, there you go. And of course, even fewer, 24% actually believe that a Farage government would govern competently. So think about that. Only 24% of people actually think that Farage's government would govern competently. So this is why And I still don't understand this. If I were in the comms team for any other political party, I would be dedicating someone to focusing on what's going on in these reform councils because it is daily incompetence, ridiculousness. Yeah, we've been covering all this. I don't understand why they don't home in on this and just show just how bad it is at a local level. Can you really trust them to run the national government on this one? So that's the first one. The fact that you've got a very large selection of the public who really do not trust reform to govern at all. So that is good. Then, of course, you've got this one, point number two, that reform's lead evaporates versus Labour. When asked to choose between the two, 43% backed a second Starmer term versus just 37% who wanted Farage in number 10. And Starmer also leads on best PM with 35 versus 28. And this is in 2025. I think these numbers are also going to change this as well as we get on into time. Remember, this is what it's like in 2025. How much will this potentially even change completely by the time we roll around to 2029? If this is what it's like now, and this is showing already how brittle Farage's polling really is when asked, a lot deeper questions, as YouGov is asking here, how much of a threat really are reform? So this is point three, and I think this is probably the most important one. So reform are not seen as credible on the economy. 58% would not trust reform with public finances. And as he points out here, very few parties enter government without winning over the public on this. And this is true. This is very, very true. One of the big things that stopped Labour from winning until really Keir Starmer came around was the fact that the public had got it into their heads, thanks very much to the Tories saying, you can't trust Labour with your finances. You can't trust them because, hey, they were responsible for the 2008 crash, even though they weren't. They managed to really steer us through that financial crisis quite well back in 2008, did Labour under Brown and under Brown. So a lot of credit does not get laid at their door, which I think is very unfair. But it wasn't until Starmer realised we have to get the public back on track that you can trust the Labour government. And that is what he did. That is what he got to succeed. This is very true. No party ever enters government unless the public actually trusts them as credible on the economy. And if you've got 58% saying they do not trust reform with public finances, I don't see that going very well. Imagine what happens now if, let's say, in the next couple of years, how much that might even change even more against reform. Let's say if Durham or Kent or one of these other reform-controlled councils goes bankrupt, then what? So that is very, very damaging for them. So on to point number 4. So what do actually voters trust reform on? The answer is nothing. YouGov tested reform's trustworthiness across multiple issues, and there wasn't a single policy area where they were trusted reform more than they didn't. They even trailed on immigration, which was their signature issue. Kind of shocking on that one, really, isn't it? The fact that they are trailing on all this. The biggest thing here, what does reform every single time, is just that they have a lot of media presence. And I think that media presence makes them seem a lot bigger than they really are. And then I think there's also a you know, the final one I think is very true as well. Reform is a serious threat, of course, let's be real. But a Farage-led government in 2029 isn't inevitable. We just need to be up for the fight. That is very, very true. And I think if you look at all these, you look at the record that honestly Labour would have going into like a 2029 election, I think it will be a lot better than I think people want to give them credit for. I think it would be a lot better. So I think those numbers that you've seen there, they're only going to go more and more and more against Farage. I really do believe that. I keep on saying polling is one thing. The performance at the polls doesn't reflect that. And now you've just had, so hey, here's some questions. You know, they are not trusted on the economy. No party ever enters government if the public does not trust them on the economy. And if they are not even trusted on any other issues, it is not inevitable. I agree with him on that. It is not inevitable. You just have to be up for the fight. So, as always, let me know what you think, of course, down below. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.